Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimesh, Radia, and I'm your host. I always love starting every episode by saying thank you. I started this podcast as really a message I got through the Akashic Records and my voice, my gift, and my intention was really to simplify spirituality and to guide people on their journey. And it's been a roller coaster of a ride, but I really do feel blessed with the number of people it's reaching, the messages I get on a weekly basis. It's just beautiful how it reaches those people when they need it most. So thank you for your messages, thank you for the support. We just love giving back. It's one of our passion projects. Now release 2 episodes a week, so it's going great. So thank you. Quick intro for me: I'm an Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer, podcast host, podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. I love guiding people on their journey, holding their space while they're going through a shift. Both me and Stacey channeled a mentorship program through the Akashic Records a few years ago. And that's what we use to guide people through their journey. Whenever you're going through a spiritual shift or whenever you're ready to awaken, I feel like people do the pre-work before they come to us. And it's a soul contract. So if you're feeling like you're going through a shift and you need support, then reach out to us. Maybe book a discovery call with either one of us or together. And maybe we're destined to guide you. This podcast wouldn't be where it is today without my beautiful co-host introducing the amazing, the stunning, the healer extraordinaire, Stacey Brown. Stace, I got to do it. Over to you.
Hi, friends. It is so good to be back. I feel very grateful to have this space and this podcast where we get to share so much of ourselves and our journeys. My name is Stacey. I'm an intuitive. I do readings for people from all around the world. I am an Akashic record reader and a spiritual coach and mentor. And I recently published my first book, Journey to Soul Center, Discovering the Gift of Surrender. It's available on Amazon and Audible. I feel very blessed to be in this space and to know that we've touched so many people and been able to reach so many in this space. I feel honored to be here today, and I'm excited to get into this topic.
Thank you, buddy. And what are we talking about this week? So as I've talked about many times before, we don't script anything. Sometimes we decide the topic in advance, but a lot of times we base the topic on what we feel in the current energy. Both on the recent episodes, we've talked a lot about communities and the importance as we go through the shift of building a community around you and connecting with communities. And yesterday we recording a week. I'm going to publish in a week's time. But yesterday we had an online event for 5 hours where we did really deep healing work with some people in a group, and it kind of also reminded us of the importance of connection and community. So today we're going to be talking about the power of spiritual friendship and walking each other home. It feels like that time we've gone through a shift. So many of us have lost friends. Our friend circles got smaller. And I feel like that was all part of the plan. It was all part of preparing us to kind of go through this shift, because when you go through a rebirth, then it is going through rebirth, which means you kind of need to clear your path. And I feel like the universe clears your path so you can go through the shift. But now we kind of come out the other side. It is a beautiful opportunity to really rebuild your inner circle. And I always say to people, as you work on you, your energy, your vibration rises. And so you set the example for the people around you to raise their vibration if they choose to. And if they don't, this is where you need to choose wisely, because maybe that soul contract's complete. Because if you stay around that person, what you're going to have to do is lower your vibration, which means that you're not shining your light. So maybe, and I know it's not always easy, and it's easy for me to say, but maybe it's time to also look at your inner circle and seeing if you have people that hold your space, that lift you up. Because I feel like it's time to really manifest powerful spiritual friendships. And what does a spiritual friendship mean, and how is it different from a normal friendship? I mean, all friendships in theory are spiritual, they're soul contracts. But the shift that we've gone through now recently, as we've elevated, you want friends who can hold your space, who can allow you to thrive. You know, your story doesn't define you, but will be there to hold your space and who will keep you honest, who will expand you. But people who are authentic, who are there because they want to be, and who, like I said, are able to hold your space. Because we're not here to fix people. We're not here to save people. The old paradigm and kind of how we've grown up is we're here to save everybody. You know, we put everybody else first and we put ourselves last. No, you want somebody who is not, who allows you to go through stuff and can hold your space, doesn't jump in to fix. Because I always say pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So somebody that can recognize when they need to jump in. And he's not trying to fix you. Because sometimes we find friends who how do I say this rightly? Who we feel that maybe we're at a different level, so they make us feel good. You know, maybe they're our cheerleaders. Maybe they will say yes to whatever we want. You want somebody who's going to challenge you, but you also want somebody who's going to hold your space. But the ultimate thing to remember, it's a soul contract. You feel it in your soul. You feel it in your bones. And the reason that we picked this topic is, you know, earlier me and Stacey were talking about our connection and, you know, the friendship we've built and how we met and how we've been kind of spiritual friends, you know, how we've, if we're honest with each other, you know, the way we've grown up, where we live. You know, I live in the UK. Stacey's in rural, you know, parts of rural US in Maryland, and, you know, kind of in a totally different location, grown up totally differently. We met on Clubhouse, and, you know, we were meant to meet. It's a soul connection for sure. But in the traditional sense, we're an unusual friendship. You know, there is differences, there is, but we do work well together. So it's just interesting when you open yourself up to magic. And maybe it's time for you to open yourself up to magic, to really find those friendships that lift you up. Honestly, I would love to have more local friendships like it. Have some beautiful friends, not super close to me, but, you know, they've grown up with me on the human side, and spiritually they don't get me to as a deeper level. And yeah, it's just interesting. So that's also something I'm manifesting. Is it's nice to have local people, and, you know, actually Stacey's planning to move to the UK, not close to where I am, but maybe that's part of my manifestation too. Who knows? But, you know, this feels like a special episode, and it's deep because we use it as an, you know, you guys are, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you've heard me and Stacey talk every other episode, and you can feel our energy, you can feel her energy, how vulnerable Stacey is, and that's one of her superpowers. And this podcast, I said it earlier, wouldn't be where it is without her. So, Stacey, I'd love for you to talk about the power of spiritual friendship, what it means to you, and, you know, this topic was actually inspired by you. So where did it come from? Over to you.
So I've been sitting here on mute and laughing and just enjoying listening to you share about, you know, our differences and stuff like that. Because let me just start by saying, I think that when you go through a shift in your life of some sort of magnitude, you can lose a lot of people. And I went through like some explosive shifts in my life, like back to back shifts in my life that really made me experience loss on a quite a significant level. I lost a lot of friends. And it's so hard for me to say that because, I had worked really hard to build those relationships over a lengthy period of time, and they've just fallen to the wayside. And it is super challenging. But the flip side to that is, as I've been on this awakening journey, I've been introduced to people like you. And I have been given the gift of a space of being myself that is super powerful. And so I would rather have less friendships, but with deeper spiritual connection than to have surface friends that clearly weren't meant to continue in my life. And I think sometimes we think people are going to be in our life for a lifetime, and sometimes they're not meant to be. It's meant to be a season. And I think that this topic was inspired because we were having a conversation before we started this and just talking about how much we appreciate each other. And I've been through some massively pivotal moments where you have held space for me and stood by my side. And I think the one that really stands out in this moment, which there are many, but in this moment, is the writing of my book. And this knowing that I had that I was supposed to do this process, and the way that you held space for me in that sacred space. I mean, it was sacred. I think we both can agree it was a powerfully sacred experience. Um, it's something I'll never forget. And I feel so blessed because I could be looking at all that I've lost, but I think about all that I've gained. And I do question why God put us in such different parts of the world. You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of like, okay, this doesn't make sense. Like, one of my very best friends lives in another part of the world, but that's how it is. And somehow we still make each other a priority. And I think that's the other thing, is that you make space for those relationships that are nurturing and healthy, right? Those relationships that bring life to you and help hold you accountable and hold space for you as you're transforming. I think that those relationships are the ones that really can have the biggest impact. And I was just expressing my gratitude to you for being one of those people, and knowing that I have a space where I can be myself and I can be vulnerable and feel safe in my shares. I mean, you hold space for me every time on this podcast when I become the big baby that I am. So I'm grateful.
The big baby that you are. I think what she means by that is when she's vulnerable and powerful on this podcast. But anyway, I guess we use different terms for different things. And it is interesting, right? I mean, we've talked about this before, being in different locations. One, I feel like our guys have jokes. But secondly, I kind of feel like it had to be that way. because you had to make an effort to come and see me, right? And then, the background to me and Stacey meeting was we met in Clubhouse. Clubhouse was is a social audio app where you can have a conversation, but it's all audio. And Stacey had a room, and she shared really vulnerably about her story, and not many people share that vulnerability from the heart. So I wasn't planning to talk in that room, but I thought, well, I just need to say well done to Stacey. So I went on stage, and I just said, and that's well done, it's well done for sharing so vulnerably. And that started a friendship, and it started a series of exchanges where I would go into Stacey's room, and I have this habit of being an expander and asking expansive questions. And every time I'd go in, Stacey would ask me, well, what's my question? And, for a few times, I'd ask a deep question because I'd feel it from my guides, and she'd end up crying, but in a space of healing. And then one time I asked her, just came up, what do you want to manifest? And there's me thinking that she would, I don't know, manifest a dream home, whatever, right? But she's like, oh, you know what? I'd love to manifest a trip to London. I was like, okay, cool. If you ever want to come to London and you need a place to stay, let me know. And she's all right, cool. And I knew she'd come because she's very determined. I was like, but I thought probably in a year or so's time, we'd plan it, we'd figure it out, whatever. And then she messaged me. She's gave me some dates, which were pretty much, I think, 4 or 5 weeks time. And, kind of like in a very short space of time, she'd booked a 10-day trip to the UK with another friend. And that's kind of what started the friendship. And part of this is trusting the nudges. Part of it is because we've talked about it before, and Stacey didn't have in her head before about manifesting a trip to London. It just came up in that moment, and that led, to a series of soul connections, even to the point where when she left here, I dropped her off at the airport. She got back, she landed, and somehow intuitively she got the message that she needs to come and spend a month here. So the first thing she did when a friend picked her up, without even really talking to her friend, was she rang her back. She's like, Nims, I think I'm coming back for a month in January. I was like, and this time it was, I think, late November. I was like, oh, okay. Just a bit surprised, but sure. And actually, that's when we recorded her book. And honestly, it was one of my most powerful experiences because when she was writing her book, she had to go back to her deepest, darkest experiences to then record that experience so she can share it with whoever's ready, whoever's listened to it. I'd highly recommend it. And, holding her space, I had to hold her space while she was reliving some really dark moments. And it was intense, but it was an experience I'd never forget. I mean, I had no clue that I was meant to spiritually help somebody write a book. Honestly, I've been resisting doing it myself. So the thought of doing it for somebody else was crazy. But also you look, the divine timing of finding the spiritual friendships, the soul led. One, you have to be open to it. But two, there is a divine timing to it. I found Clubhouse at a time when, it was March 2020 or April 2020, actually. Lockdown had just hit. It was a kind of a lonely-ish experience. I mean, I enjoyed my own company, but it was also the weirdest thing. I missed hugging people. I didn't even realize that was a big thing, but it was just, but I found Clubhouse. Sidra, my mentor, my friend who'd been guiding me for so many years, left this realm in March 2020. And when she left, there was a lot of people around her that were also close friends to me, and everybody went through their own process of release. And, so that friend circle had gone quiet. I couldn't meet people in person. I wasn't traveling for work anymore. And I found Clubhouse. And also at that time is when I found Stacey as a friendship and just kind of as a special connection. And, she talks about she needing it, what she was going through, but I needed it too. I needed that space. I needed somewhere to speak my truth, like Clubhouse, but also somebody to hold my space. So it was just an interesting time. And yeah, this is, she joined this podcast from episode 17. We're now at something like 254. I think this one will be. And, she's visited here multiple times. Actually, the boyfriend she found is actually in the UK, and she's planning on moving here. So it's just kind of like in a short space of time, it's only been a few years, life has really shifted. But we talk every day. We're business partners, so a lot of what we do is we do together. The event that we had yesterday was together. But that's the beauty of it, when you open yourself up. But you have to take the leap of faith. She was married at the time, so I couldn't really visit her or her situation. But I had space here, right? And somehow she found the connection to London, and London needed her. The UK needed her. It was just, I know it was divinely planned, but you also have to listen and follow the nudges. And how it started was deep conversations that nourished the soul. I was making her cry, so it wasn't like I wasn't doing it maliciously. I was doing it to expand her. And she recognized that, and she recognized it was from a loving perspective. But, sharing our truth, our dreams, our triggers, and because that's the other thing what spiritual friendships bring. They're meant to trigger you sometimes. It's a deep connection. And I joke about it with Stacey all the time that, sometimes I feel like, I don't know if I want to say this, but it's like I'm that parental figure. It's like she's not eating on certain days. I'm like, Stace, come on, you have to eat. And it's like, wait, hold on, how did I get this role? It's crazy. But yeah, look, it's just, and actually, this episode wasn't necessarily meant to be about me and Stacey, our friendship. More about, this is the time to manifest those spiritual friendships. This is the time to create space in your world for people that can hold your space, that can push you, that can expand you, that can allow you to be you in this new version of you. This is the time, which is why this episode felt important. So, Stacey, let me ask you, what would your advice be for anyone that wants to manifest more kind of spiritual friendships, more deep connections, more soul-led connections? What would be your kind of advice?
I think that you've got to start with manifesting it. So, getting clear on what it looks like to have friendships that are deeper and more connected than surface, maybe connections you have at work. I would say get clear on what that looks like. I really feel like you came into my life at a point where I was ready for you. Like I was in a space of pain and heartbreak and sadness. And, it was just a really challenging season. And I feel like the universe looked at me and said, you need this person in your life. And I feel like I was blessed with you at just the right time. So I'm sitting here saying, manifest it. But I also feel like I had to be open to new. That's what Clubhouse did for me. It was opening me up to something new. And in that newness, in that new space, I started to develop friendships that just felt more deeply connected. Now, I was also experiencing more loss at the same time. I want to be clear. So if you are in a season right now where you're feeling like you're losing friendships, I definitely think that's part of it. But I also feel that the universe just blessed me at exactly the time that I needed it with the connections that I began to form in the season of what I would call another part of my awakening. I feel like it happens in layers. And I feel like this connection just happened at a time when I was open to new. And so I would suggest being open to making new connections. Where can you do that? We talked about community in our last episode. But when you're in that community, do you feel drawn to certain individuals? Have you tried reaching out to them and having a conversation? I think about all the people that we've connected with through the podcast, through our free Zoom healing sessions, through our coaching and mentorship, through our Akashic record readings. Like, there's just so many powerful connections that we've made because we're open to having deeper conversations and people know it. And so they're drawn to that. So I also suggest you open your heart center and start having deeper conversations when you feel prompted to, because you never know who might be open to having those conversations with you that you didn't realize.
And it's interesting, right? It's that and you mentioned it, right? It's that reality that spiritual friends aren't here to fix you. Actually, many times, because we found each other when there was a lot of major shifts going on in our lives, right? So actually, you tend to find them when you are going through a shift. I mean, it's ironic. I look at our friendship and the friend circle we had at the time. I met you through a friend. I'm no longer in touch with that friend. You know, you visited another friend. There was like a group of friends that were here, and the only friendships that survived, well, currently in my world, is the two of us. So it's just an interesting when you look at it. But you know, you were going through a breakup, a divorce, trying to figure out where you're going to live, things like that. You know, life changing events. You know, you ended up writing a book, leaving your business, starting a healing business, and you know, I've left corporate. I lost my friend, my mentor, who was such a big part of my life. She passed away in a fire, and you know, just there was a big hole in my world, and I was going through a shift. So there is a divine timing to it, I guess is my point. But also, you don't wait. You have to put the intention out there, especially if you're going through a shift. And the weird thing is about when you're going through a shift, you tend to feel like you're all alone. You tend to feel like nobody will understand what you're going through. And that's the other part of manifesting, is trusting there are people out there that hold your space. You know, I'm a big believer that a lot of our major soul contracts are predetermined before we start this physical journey. But I still feel that you have free will, and you know the timing of when the connection is made. You have to take that. So Stacey had to trust her manifestation and kind of coming to London. I also feel, you know, there's our guides working in the background. I feel like Sidra, who's now one of my spiritual guides, I feel like she was doing some work in the background. So there is a lot of things that have to happen, but it's not. Spiritual friendship isn't about everything being rosy. Actually, in many ways, it's the opposite. Because the other weird thing is, you know, we expand each other too. We wind each other up. I remember with Sidra, right? I was annoyed with her about something. You know, just she could get into my skin in so many weird ways, and you know, I was annoyed. I was kind of, I don't swear very often, but I was effing blinding and just like, and she was just smiling, and I was like, "What are you smiling about?" She's like, "You know, we've got a soul contract. You can scream and shout as much as you want, but you're stuck with me." And I was just like, oh, and you know, there was a knownness in me that was like, oh man, you know, that's the same with Stacey, right? There's a connection there, and you know, whatever I need to heal, like on, you know, the divine feminine, or you know, she's done a lot of healing around the, you know, the divine father and divine masculine, and that's the other thing, is you have a soul contract together to expand. You know, so just it is a deep connection, I guess is the point. It doesn't have to be romantic. You know, Stacey's planning to move to the UK, and she's her boyfriend's in Yorkshire. So, but you know, we were talking about, actually, this is why it's like, you know, we talk every day. The business it's not just about the business, but it's like connect every morning, whatever that looks like. And it's just, just feels right. And this thing about soul spiritual connections, spiritual friendships is, Stacey's on about it, right? It's like our connections are reasons, season life, right? Sometimes we meet people for a reason, to teach us something, to expand us in some kind of way. Other times it's just for a season, somebody to walk alongside us, maybe not to teach us something, but just to be there. And others is for life. And it's recognizing and asking those questions. And honestly, even when you talk about life, we go through so many rebirths. Who knows? I can't. I'm not. I'm very much focused on this moment and feeling the magic and the beauty in this moment. But I know that my connection with Stacey, the friendship that we have. I go back. There was an instant connection. We felt at some soul level there was a connection. Our souls recognized that connection. And then whenever we talked, mainly at Clubhouse at the beginning, but then we started talking off Clubhouse, we would challenge each other. And I can't do chit-chat conversations anymore. I just can't, even then. So they're very deep spiritual conversations, but we knew we could trust each other. And it's being seen in those. So it sounds, how do I say it? It sounds maybe impossible to achieve if you've got superficial friends. But I'm sure at times you've had some really deep friendships that maybe you thought were for life and maybe they're not in your world anymore. But if you're going through a shift, and you have been through so many shifts, and the spiritual shift the planet is going through from divine masculine to divine feminine, we're shifting from individual, really big egos to communities. This really is a time to find your tribe. Ask your guides, manifest it, as Stacey was saying. Just trust in your intuition, because when you raise your vibration, your energy becomes addictive. So just because somebody comes into your world, it doesn't mean they're meant to be in a circle. Trust in what you feel inside. So this episode, as we continue, yes, it's about mine and Stacey's connection, but it's more, the reason it resonated so much is, if I really feel like now is the time for community, for you to manifest spiritual friendships, to not feel alone. Because this last phase, I'm sure for a lot of you, the friend circle got smaller and it felt at times really lonely. And honestly, even having somebody like Stacey in my life, there's been many times I felt alone. And that's nothing against Stacey. That's what this last period has meant. But we're getting through it. So what if now you can manifest new spiritual deep friendships? Are you open to that? Do you even believe they exist? Because again, the universe is going to give you what you ask for. If you believe they don't exist, your guys are going to be like, okay, fine, let's prove they don't exist. But you have to take that leap of faith. Stacey, I'd love for you to know, we haven't talked about it recently, but where did coming to London come from? I'm just curious.
I mean, I remember blurting it out and, knowing I had not ever really traveled anywhere. I had been to Jamaica one time for a couple of days, but that was the only time I had ever used a passport and left the States. But there was just something in me that wanted to be brave, and do something that I had never done before. And it's funny because it was like the beginning of like my whole life changing, just the shifts that I've been through. And um there have been moments that have been so insanely painful that you've witnessed. And then there have been, beautiful moments in between. And man, I've been tested for sure. Um, but I just don't know how I would be navigating through without this connection. And I feel like when I said London, it came from a soul space. It didn't come from an ego space. And I think that's why it just came out, and it was like, okay, I'm going to make this happen. And I just started visualizing making it happen and manifesting the money to make it happen. And there were just so many parts to it, you know? Um, but when I look back on it, it just feels so divinely led. And I long to be in that space as much as possible. So I want to surround myself with people who help take me there, who remind me of who I am and hold space for me in the experiences that I'm having. I mean, I navigated through some really heavy, heavy stuff that I don't think I could have carried alone. And you saw those moments. I mean, they were really dark and challenging. And you held space for me during it and didn't judge me, which would could easily have been done. But I feel like if you're going through a period of isolation right now, be open to the idea that there are deeper connections being formed for you right now. And be open to those changing your life. Because when you make space for those connections and they happen, it's a powerful thing to be able to let your guard down, tap into your spirituality, be authentic in who you are and vulnerable. These friendships really can empower a shift in you that I think is hard to navigate alone. I really do. And I feel like that's why you were placed in my life at exactly the time you were, because there was so much that I was going to navigate. And I think the universe was like, okay, you need a Nimesh right now. It really felt like it was divine timing. I just think with technology being what it is now, I think a lot of us get isolated and we get depressed about being isolated, but then we don't know how to pull out of it. And I really believe that's where it's about getting outside of your comfort zone. So, like, I challenge you in this moment, my friend who's listening to this episode, if you haven't joined our free Zoom healing session, do it, experience it. It's another space of community. If you want to form friendships, you've got to put yourself in different spaces with people who are like-minded and that you feel you can be yourself with. And so you've got to find those spaces, and it's going to take trying something new. For me and for Nimesh, that was Clubhouse during the season that it was. But I think it's about stepping outside of your comfort zone, my friends. And I'm not trying to sound silly about it, but I think if you want to experience new, deeper connections, you've got to be willing to step out of your bubble and into a space of something new. Wouldn't you agree, Nims?
100%. There's a divine timing to it. It is multiple faceted. It is guided, and like you said, the coming to London just happened, and that led to a series of events. It also led to you leaving your orbit and leaving your space and realizing that you were in a space that wasn't conducive to you living and being kind of thriving. And it's interesting when you open yourself up to being in different places, how much you learn about yourself. And that's the other thing about spiritual friendships, is they find that they're like a mirror. They will teach you. It's not all rosy. And so I'm thinking about all the times where, we frustrated each other. There was times when, we were kind of like, we're done, kind of this emotional human stuff that we go through. But, we've just stayed connected. And it's really interesting. There's been friends along the journey that I actually thought would still be here, right? We'd still be friends together. And, some ended in the way they're supposed to. Some just, I still feel a connection. It's not as regular, and it's not as, it's just not stayed consistent. And who knows what that leads to, and I'm blessed with having a lot of love in my life, with the extended family I have. I have some friends that I've had for many, many years. And I'm very, very blessed with the love that I receive. But I've shifted. I'm spiritually in a different space. And what I needed was different. So that's Stacey's already talking about the spiritual shift that you've been through actually means that what you need now is different. And it's recognizing that. It's nothing against the love that you receive from your existing friendships, but it's, are they holding your space spiritually?
Okay, so buddy, I have a question.
Go on.
So, do you feel the difference in a spiritual friendship as far as longevity? Like when you think about our connection, can you see that it's here to stay?
Really hard to answer that question. And the reason, yes, the simple answer would be yes, I feel it's here to stay. But there's been so many friends, and Stacey, you've had the same situation where we thought they were going to be friends for life, right? So yes, in my soul, it feels like it's a friendship that's around who knows how long, because it's just such a weird time. But I've been through so much that I'm just focusing on being blessed that you're in my life today. Who knows the longevity of it? Who knows that? For those that are not watching on YouTube, Stacey's making hearts. And the other interesting thing about actually recording today was, all the people I recorded, for some reason, when Stacey's not muted, sometimes there's an echo. I can't figure out why. We've tried so many different things, but it frustrates the hell out of her that, we can still banter, but when I'm talking, she's muted, and when she's talking, I'm muted, and it's just that kind of, I get frustrated a little bit. It's just interesting. I also feel like that's the universe messing with us, and our guys having some jokes. But it's just such a beautiful thing to experience, but you have to be open to it, and you have to be open to these friendships looking like nothing you've seen before. But your heart knows, your soul knows. I had, I can't even think back to when I first met Stacey. I just felt a nudge that I needed to go and talk to her. That was it. So, and I just followed that nudge. But you have to be open to it. And that for me is the biggest advice I'd give to is honoring this season. And yes, some of the spiritual friendships you make now has every chance of surviving your lifetime. And it's interesting. Stacey was asking about this lifetime, but we know we've had connections in previous lives. So I'm not even sure why you're asking about this lifetime. And just, I don't know if I have any plans of coming back into this human realm state. So, I guess if I do, then sure, we can have a connection, but I'm not promising anything about coming back. But that's probably a whole different episode. But, this is such a beautiful time to manifest people to hold your space. But I will remind you, it's not all rosy. These are the spiritual friendships. I'm here to expand you. I'm here to guide you and hold your space, but it's a co-creation. But it's something I feel that we all need rather than want. But you still have to be open to it. You still have to recognize that, yes, no one's going to fully understand your human journey because it's unique to you. But there are people that are out there that can hold your space. And that's what you've got to be open to. So Stacey, as we start to close out this episode, what other advice would you give to our listeners about this journey and about allowing people in?
I think if you're somebody who's guarded, it's hard. It's going to be challenging to do something you've never done before. But I also feel that when you make a spiritual connection with someone, you have a different level of trust because there's a different level of respect. And I absolutely feel that this is something that we can draw to us, but I think that we have to be open to it. And I think part of that is being open to being in new circumstances that maybe we haven't been in before. Like I was saying earlier, putting yourself in environments where you can be around other spiritual people, I think is key. And if you can't do it in person, doing it virtually, finding ways to make connections and be open to those new situations, I feel is really important because I had to be open to Clubhouse. Clubhouse was something completely foreign to me, but had I not been open to trying that new thing, I never would have met you. So it's like one step leads to another step, leads to another step. And so you just never know. And also, I would look at the people who are already in your life and see if you've been holding back in any relationships that maybe have the potential to go deeper. Have you made spiritual connections and maybe not nurtured that connection as much as you could? I think that's a really good question to ask. But I feel that people are drawn into our lives at the time that we need them. And so I would encourage you to trust the process.
Beautiful advice. Trust the process. The other thing that Stacey said was really important is this time where you need to go out your comfort zone. You've just gone through so many spiritual shifts. You can't. Definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing, expect a different set of results. If you want something to change, then do something different. Put yourself out your comfort zone. Don't put yourself in danger, but put yourself in situations that are not comfortable because they expand you. The other question actually we haven't come on to is, are you ready to be a spiritual friend? Are you ready to be open to let somebody in that can hold your space? Because it's so easy to say, yeah, I want a spiritual friend. I want, but it's a co-creation. You need to let somebody in. You need to not just create space in your world, but you also need to be open to hold somebody else's space. And it is a two-way street. So try it. And as Stacey was saying, we have the webinar coming up. And actually, I'm just thinking about the date. So we released this episode. I released this episode. Today's the 9th. Actually, we'll have this month's Full Moon Men webinar tomorrow on the 10th. So if you are listening to this on the Monday or even the Tuesday, depending when in the day, then look at the show notes. You'll find the link. Do join us. It's on, like I said, let me just check the date. It is on the 10th, and it's on at 9 p.m. UK. It's 90 minutes. That'll be 4 p.m. EST. That'll be 11 a.m. PST. It's free. It's for 90 minutes. You get to experience what me and Stacey do at a deeper level. We open the cash records. We do a meditation. It's also a beautiful community. There's so much love in that space. If you want to feel that kind of community, then do join us. But do put yourself out your comfort zone. You're destined to be somebody else's spiritual friend, and you have spiritual friends out there that are ready for this version of you. Thank you, Stacey. Thank you for being the friend that you are. Thank you for co-creating. Thank you for being on this journey with me. Thank you to all our listeners. I'm so blessed that you support this podcast. Feeling very, very, very blessed, and sending love and light out to everybody. And Stacey, I'm going to hand over to you to close out.
I'm so grateful for this spiritual friendship and for the path that we have been on and the lessons we've learned and the ways that we've grown each other. And I can't wait to see what's ahead. You know, we've already made so many memories, and I know there's more to come. And my friends, my deepest desire is for you also to form connections. So be open to the magic of what the universe has for you. Thanks for being here with us today. This was another powerful episode. We'll see you soon.
Love and light. Bye for now.